Hi, welcome. I'm Heather. I'm a longtime public school teacher turned homeschool parent and creator of the Homeschool Info Hub, where I help families step into homeschooling with confidence, clarity, and deep respect for childhood. In this three-part series, we're going to talk about something that many new homeschoolers don't know that they even need. That's deschooling. Whether you've just pulled your child from school or you're considering pulling your child from school, deschooling is the bridge. It's what helps you shift out of the old patterns and build something that actually works for your family. Something that highlights a home education centered around trust, curiosity, and connection. Okay, let's dive into part one. Let's start with something that we were never taught in school. And I don't believe that I was taught even the history of the educational system as somebody who went through a degree, undergrad degree and graduate degree in college for education, for becoming a teacher in the United States. Our educational system was designed in the mid-1800s. It was not to serve the needs of the children. It was to serve the needs of the industrial economy, creating a workforce that was obedient, standardized, and efficient. Does anybody else feel a friction here? Have you been paying attention to the children coming in over the past 20 years? These children are sharp, strong-willed, curious, and independent. They ask the hard questions. They don't accept things just because. They are creative, outspoken, and highly aware, even when they're young. So now we have this archaic system that was created and designed for obedience, standardization, and efficiency. Now we're working with children who are empowered. Look at these children. They're ready to conquer the world, and yet they're in the same structure of a system. My daughter attends public school. So I have the look at being a public school teacher myself for a couple of decades, a homeschool parent, a mom of a child who has decided to go into the system after 6 years of being homeschooled, and then a son who is being homeschooled. So my daughter is 15 and my son is 12. My daughter is a freshman, just finishing up her freshman year. And she has 2 minutes between her classes. So she goes to 7 different classes in her day, and she has 2 minutes in which she's somehow supposed to go from A to B, which are often across the entire school. So she's never able, she's allowed, but they don't set it up so that they can have success. She can't get to her locker. So she'll say to a teacher, "I'm really cold. Can I go and get my sweater?" And they'll look at her and say, "Why didn't you get it when you were at your locker this morning?" What she says is, "I wasn't cold then." And they look at her as if that's crazy and wild, that she couldn't anticipate what her body temperature would be 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours later. It doesn't matter how many well-intentioned teachers. It doesn't matter how many well-intentioned principals. It doesn't matter how many well-intentioned superintendents, which is very much an oxymoron. And it doesn't matter how many well-intentioned school committees that exist. We continue to run our children through a system that was built in the 1800s around obedience, standardization, and efficiency. It's not just outdated, it's completely out of sync with the children that are in front of us. These beautiful children that are the next generation of the leaders of our country. They already are empowered. In 1837, Horace Mann helped to establish the first public school system right here in Massachusetts. He looked to Prussia, where schools were being structured like military training grounds. Strict schedules, we know this. Bells, still happening. Age-based grades, check. Rigid discipline, Check. That's the model we still use today. That model that was built here in Massachusetts as the first public school system to represent, it wasn't built for creativity. It wasn't built for emotional safety. It wasn't built to honor each individual child. It was built for control. The simple nature of those three reasons for it being built: obedience, efficiency, and standardization. That's not looking at the whole child. That's not taking a look at what's in the best interest of children as an overall group of people and individually. Over the years, we've seen glimmers of change. In the 70s, there was the open classroom concept and a lot of experimentation around that. In fact, when I graduated from high school in 1991 and I set foot at UMass Amherst to begin my early childhood education degree, I started to learn about the open concept classroom. And I started to get really excited about the opportunity in my very innocent, I was 17-year-old self. I imagined that if they were doing that in the 70s, my goodness, what could we do in the mid-90s when I graduate? I made this assumption that because time had moved forward, most certainly we'd be moving into a better system by the children's best interest. See, I was very naive stepping into the public school realm. I truly thought I was setting foot in that classroom to do what was best by my students. By the time that I graduated, by the time that I got my first classroom position, which was about 3 years into being a teacher, I was an aide, I was a long-term sub, and then I finally landed my classroom position. It was very challenging to get your own classroom back then. And so by the time that I was in there, it took me 3 quick years to realize, oh, this is not at all what I signed up for. And then 5 years later, it got way worse. It got so much worse because time on learning came in, No Child Left Behind came in, all of those things that crack down on the system. Here I was, this very naive and very hopeful young teacher, and I had all the energy in the world, and I thought, this is amazing. I'm going to be able to impart all of this knowledge with my students and also make them feel good and confident about themselves. And then I realized that I had to work with the actual system. And it just very quickly became discordant. It just wasn't the flow that I had anticipated and hoped for, which I knew was best for my students. I even had this really wonderful teacher that I learned under. Her name was Sharon Edwards. I don't know if she's still teaching in one of the elementary schools in Amherst, Massachusetts, but I learned so much from her. She was practicing whole language and supporting the children in becoming readers and writers in a natural way. Whole language is putting the language around them, surrounding them with the words, posted all over the room, reading to them, reading by them, and letting the process of reading and writing unfold naturally. So I felt really excited when I was in college because I thought, hey, this is like what I signed up for. And then no sooner did whole language come in, it was gone again. And honestly, once that was gone, once that was stripped of the school systems, there was, in my opinion, no hope for elementary education. It got more rigid, and more rigid. So that student-led learning, progressive models of the 70s have kind of surfaced and gone away, surfaced and gone away, surfaced and gone away. And the teachers The best practice teachers, because they are out there, many of them, they're trying, they're attempting to do this thing where they're looking at the whole child and trying to meet their needs. But the problem is that the system just keeps coming in with stopping and halting it. They go on to the next best practice, that they put out there. Meanwhile, all of these things are smoke and mirrors, to be quite honest with you, because the system structured around us doesn't change. Education over the years has made small strides towards improvement, only to be set back again and again and again. So the hopeful era of the 70s, when the open classroom model was being experimented with and functioning very well, lucky for those people that got to experience it, that came to a screaming halt in 1983 when a report called A Nation at Risk was shared. It reported that the U.S. educational system was in crisis. That sparked a backlash, a return of rigor, discipline, standardized testing, and top-down control. And that's the pattern that we've seen ever since. One step forward sometimes, maybe 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. The core of the system really hasn't changed. Even with modern tech and new language, the structure still reflects its industrial roots. Every time we move forward with a child-centered approach, the system pulls us back into that control model. So you might be asking, why is she sharing all this negative stuff about education? Well, we need to understand what we signed up for when we put our children in school, what we do sign up for when we put our children in school. I have one in the system. She's making that decision because she's a radical unschooler and she gets to choose her path, but she is very knowledgeable about the system. She knows everything that I'm sharing with you here. She knows all of the ways in which it fails. She's making the choice to do that each new day. She knows she can come home at any time, but she has her own path, and I am happy to support my children. I have another child who is at home with me. Both of them started out with their first 6 years of homeschooling. Those first 6 years truly empowered them to see the big picture of the world outside of the system. So when my daughter went into the system, she had so much more information about what the world outside of the system looked like, how it felt, and then how it is to be in there. She has a lot of gripes about it. There's very little that she says is great about it, but she's walking that path. And I'm by her side supporting her. Her eyes are wide open. There's no mistaking any part of it. We bring our children home from school or we start them right into homeschooling path. We get a redo, because if you were schooled, you are going to need to deschool yourself. So even if we come right into the path of homeschooling like I did with my children, my goodness, I had all the years of my childhood in public school. Then I had 2 more decades of teaching in the public school system. So now we're talking that I had near 40 years in the system. I had a lot of deschooling to do. Quite honestly, it started when my daughter was very young. I joke and say that my daughter was 2.5 years old and stuck up her middle fingers and said, "Hey lady, you're either going to join in with this path that I'm carving out for myself, or we're just going to bump heads." And in that moment, I chose connection with my daughter and supporting her on her path. And I know I've mentioned in other videos that that girl could run this household easily for an extended period of time. I'm not talking hours, I'm talking weeks upon weeks. She knows how to do it all. I don't need to get in her way. The system doesn't need to get in her way. She's carving her own path, and I am here for it. You don't have to keep doing school the way that it's always been done in your home. Permission to change everything about it. It's the most wonderful part of homeschooling. You design it for your home. But I'm here to share information about deschooling so that you understand that there is this period of time between the two. In the second part of this 3-part series, I'm going to talk about what deschooling actually looks like in your home. The process that you go through, that your children go through. It's a family thing. It is not just for the children. It is not just for the parents. And it's not just something that ends because you've done it for 3 weeks. It is something that unravels over years, over years, over years. Trust me, I have now been on this homeschool path with my children for the past, my daughter is 15, so we started right away. So say that's 3 or 4 years old. And we've been doing it since then. And I'm still unraveling it. I'm now seeing how the system of schooling, very much related to the system of my home that I grew up in, like my family system, it's all overlapping. Systems are systems are systems, and they are one size fits all. They do not look at the individual. You have to fit into the box. When you bring your children to homeschooling, there's no box unless you create a box, which I'm here to share that you don't need to create one. Absolutely don't need to create one. Everybody just gets to thrive. Parents, children, like all the enthusiasm, everybody gets to have an empowered experience. I look forward to being with you for part 2. Have a great day.